Hello viewers, this is Umbra Racing here, and welcome to the channel. So based off of the title of the video and the thumbnail, you guys already know what happened, but I do want to take you on the journey of the races that happened on this day of August 11th at the Mosport Arrive and Drive Kart Racing League, because these races were actually quite dynamic. We had some changing conditions all throughout the day, and it really added to the unpredictability of things, as well as the excitement all throughout the different races. And to be honest, I feel as if these races were the most exciting that I've had all season long. And we're going to take a look at every single one of those and see how they unfolded. So we are doing our heat format on this day. So we're taking a look at heat 1 here, and we got the second heat after and the final after that. And the variation of the track that we're doing is we're actually almost doing the entirety of the karting track. We're incorporating the long bowl this time around. The only section that we're not touching is the short bowl on the far end of the track. So as a result of that, we actually have a very high-speed track with some long straights and one hill in particular, which is very steep, which really allow these karts to hit well over 70 kilometers an hour, sometimes almost hitting 80, right? So this is gonna be a very high-speed track, and as you can see, the conditions of the track are not great. You can see we're driving on a completely soaked, damp track. During our practice, we did have a dry track, so we were able to, practice and figure out what we needed to do during the long bowl section. However, after practice, we got some pretty bad downpour, which has gone away at this point, but the track has still been affected by it, and it's still completely soaked. So all of that stuff that we practice kind of just goes way out the window now, and we have to kind of just figure things out as we go, as we start our Heat 1 race and we get the green flag. So I'm starting off in P6 here as we make our way up the long bowl section. You can just see so much water being displaced by these tires as we come up through the long bowl. You can see these karts struggling to get up the crest of the hill here. Overtaking pylons are right here at the very top of the hill. So as we come into this corner, I tried to brake early, but I just kind of hydroplaned and ended up tapping the driver ahead of me. And as a result of that, all four of us completely wiped out on this corner. And you can see I'm just kind of jiggling the cart to try to get it free. I just barely get enough grip to be able to pull the cart off of the grass here. But yeah, as a result of that, I managed to get one position, but got overtaken by two of the other drivers that were behind me. So yeah, as you can see, the conditions here are not great. Slick tires on a wet track is just a recipe for carnage, and we're going to be seeing much more of that as the race goes on. So overall, what you're going to want to be aiming for when you're driving on a wet track like this is, first and foremost, you want to stay off of the normal racing line as much as possible, because you have absolutely no grip there at all. So for a lot of these corners, like right here, you want to drive as wide as possible to try to stay off of the black stuff. You want to try to fight for as much grip as you can, and the grip is going to be off of the normal racing line. So as we come into the S's here, I kind of made a bit of a mistake here. I think I just got on the brakes a little bit too hard, which unsettled the cart and sent me into a bit of a spin out here. But thankfully I was able to recover quickly enough and not have to sacrifice a position. So you can see the driver up ahead, he kind of spun out right at the exit of the S's here. And I'm just kind of barely making it around onto the start-stop straight here. The karts do get pretty sketchy during these straights here, so this is going to be a real test of karting control and just seeing how well you can fare during these poor conditions. You can see the kart getting very sketchy as we make our way up the hill here. Coming into this corner here, I kind of made a bit of a mistake and cut in a little bit too early, touching the normal driving line. So I had to let the kart glide out wide so I can get some grip on the outside. The thing that is nice is that when you're off of the normal racing line, you do actually get a lot more grip than you think you'll have, and you can actually use the throttle to help steer the car in. So every time I'm on the outside of these corners, I'm kind of blipping the throttle, just tapping it to kind of get the car to pivot more and more, trying to use a little bit of that that slip that you get getting on the power to kind of rotate the kart. You see there, just barely getting enough grip to kind of save it going up the hill there. So, coming down into the back straight, trying to make sure I don't make the same mistake as last time. I broke a little bit earlier this time, and then trying to go out wide. Here, I made a very weird decision. I don't know why I decided to cut in so close to the corner, because that's not the line that you should be driving in the wet. You should be going away from that curb on the right side as much as possible, go out wide, and then go in. Otherwise, you're going to spin out. Luckily there, I managed to somehow keep it together, but that's definitely not the line you want to drive going into that corner. So, on to the final lap now. Burning Rubber is actually directly ahead of me, and I definitely wanted to try to make an overtake on him on this lap here. You can see he had kind of a very bad moment going up the hill. Right here, I decided to kind of send it through the inside. I tried to use what little grip I would have had on my left tires to try to just glide out and make that overtake. Thankfully, I didn't spin out, didn't make any contact, and I managed to get the move done. And now we are into P5, so I managed to move up one position from the start of this race here. So coming down the hill, you see you have to dive very wide into these corners to get any amount of grip that you can. You can see just fighting the kart as we go through the track here. So coming up to the top of the hill, tried to go wide, and I just made a little bit of a mistake here. I think I might have carried just a tiny bit too much speed, and I hooked my right rear tire onto the grass, sending me into a bit of a spin, but thankfully I was able to recover quick enough and not have to lose the position there either. So now, coming into the S's, getting the braking point nicely, but again, I made the same mistake that I did the lap prior, and again, this is what ends up happening if you take that line. I ended up just spinning out midway through the S's. So again, that's not what you want to be doing. Don't use this as an example. But yeah, here I ended up sliding out again right at the exit of the S's. But, you know, thankfully there was enough of the gap to where I could retain P5, and we finally make our way to the finish line and end Heat 1 in P5. Yeah, this was an interesting race. The conditions were completely awful, but the result here was not bad. I'm just thankful that I was able to make some form of progress here for the first heat despite the conditions, and that should set us up decently as we jump into the second heat here. So, let's take a look at that. So as we approach the S's here to finish up the formation lap and kick off the Heat 2 race, this is actually where the races start to get very intense, because at this point the track has dried up, the sun is out, it's been drying up the track nicely. However, there are still some very minor wet spots in the track that you have to be wary about, as well as the track temperatures and the tire temperatures being somewhat cold. So you don't have as much grip as you think you do, but definitely significantly more than we had in Heat 1. So as a result of that, we're going to be sending it as much as possible and trying to fight for those positions as we get the green flag to kick off the race here. So I'm starting off in P3 here, right behind Burning Rubber in second, and as we ascend the hill, we have some beautiful scenery here as we have a nice sunset in the distance, some semi-clear skies. And then as we get past the overtaking pylons here, P1 is a little bit slow, so I try to make a move up the inside here and just park it right on the apex here to try to prevent any moves from getting past. So I managed to go up one position here, up into P2. Burning Rubber takes P1 as we descend down the hill here, hitting about 71, 72 kilometers an hour, hitting the braking point nicely as we go through the hairpin. I managed to close the distance nicely on Burning Rubber here as I slot into the slipstream. We have a driver on the right side here, but I managed to edge him out slightly so I can get a good line for the corners on the top of the hill here. So now I'm right on Burning Rubber's tail. So now that driver is now back again on my left side. He has the inside of this corner, and I can't really do much about this. So he kind of makes the move. He loses a little bit of grip, and there is contact, forcing me a bit wide. But thankfully, nobody gets wiped out. So here, I try to make a move to try to get past him, but he just gets a little bit better momentum on the start-stop straight here, so I had to surrender the position and slot back in, trying to get some slipstream, as we have another driver on the right side that slowly makes his way past me. So I end up losing 2 positions here as we ascend the top of the hill. So now I check my left side. I see that there's another driver there, but he's not quite close enough to make a move, so I try to keep it tight here, but there's a bit of contact on the entry of that corner, forcing me wide and just killing my momentum as we go down the hill, so I end up losing another position here. So now I'm in a precarious position because I have a driver on my left and a driver on my right, so I have to make sure I hit my braking point nicely so I can get a cutback on this driver that sends it up the inside. I managed to get the move done and retain the position here. So I check my right side, make sure it's clear, try to get a nice line into this corner here. The driver on my left manages to regain the position as he sends a move up the inside again. So I try to slot in from the back, try to get some slipstream, try to go narrow for an overtake on the inside of the corner here, but he makes a mistake and goes off the track, and there's another incident between 2 drivers just up ahead in the middle of the S's here. So I managed to benefit off of that and go up into P3 temporarily. So there's a bit of a drag race here on the straight. I think this driver managed to get just a little bit of a better exit and get better momentum up the start-stop straight here. So I end up surrendering the position and then move back down into P4 as we proceed through the final lap of Heat 2 here. So I try to drive a clean line through the bowl here and get a bit of a bad line there, which is gonna kind of compromise my speed down the straight here. So now I'm under attack by a driver on my right. So I try to pull off the same move again here, getting the braking point nicely, but this driver just parks it on the apex and just prevents the move from even getting done, and then takes the position easily here. So I try to make a move up the outside of the corner, try to drive over the curb here, but can't quite do it. So I try to slot in for some slipstream on the straight, try to pull out and go narrow, but he just covers it off. I try to go for another move here on the inside of this corner. I managed to get past momentarily, and just right here, Burning Rubber makes a mistake, and then he's just right in my line, so I just had to hit the brakes and then surrender the position to this driver here. So right on the last lap, he manages to get P3, and then I finished the race in P4. So that race was actually very exhilarating. It was a shame I wasn't able to get a P3 finish there, but it doesn't even really matter because I had a lot of fun with this Heat 2 race. There was just constant jostling of positions here, and it's just a lot of fun to just, you know, see what kind of strategies these drivers try to employ here, whether or not they try to go offensive or defensive, how aggressive they're going with their overtakes and whatnot, and then just trying to defend and try to orchestrate some moves to counter them. Like, just going through all of that was just a lot of fun through this race, and I think it was probably one of my favorite races throughout this whole day here. So as a result of that finish, finishing in P4 for the second heat and P5 for the first heat, that's actually going to set me up somewhere close to the front, kind of more middle pack for the final race. So I'm going to have like a decent overall starting position here. So let's jump into the final race and take a look at how things unfolded there. So jumping into the final race of the day, I do want to apologize for the video quality for this race in particular, because we were out pretty late. There were about 8 groups during the session, and we were in group 8, and these sessions were pretty lengthy. So by the time we got our final race, it was already around like 8 p.m. or something like that. So it got pretty dark out, and my camera doesn't really do the best in low light situations like this, so there was going to be a little bit of a loss of quality and stabilization. But ultimately, the important part here is that this race is the race that matters, and I'm starting in P5 as we get the green flag to kick it all off. I have 4 very quick drivers ahead of me, and I have to figure out a way to get ahead and get myself into the podium spot. So as we ascend the top of the hill here, I decide to make a move up the inside here, keep it nice and clean, get the move done, and now I'm into P4. So now coming around and then down this very steep hill, tucking into the slipstream, we managed to accelerate up to about 76 kilometers an hour, hitting the braking point nicely as we dive into the hairpin here, keeping it nice and clean. I managed to get another position here, so now I'm up into P3. Managed to get 2 positions pretty quickly into this race. Get a nice line into the hill here, keeping it clean down the hill as we approach the S's. I check my corners just to make sure nobody is trying to attack the inside. And just driving it very aggressive, just taking so much curb on the entry of the S's here, and then using the exit curb on the left side to kind of guide the cart into the start-stop straight here. So now start jumping into lap 2. At this point I was driving very aggressive because I wanted to try to use as many tactics as I possibly could to try to get ahead here. When I enter this corner here, I do make a bit of a mistake. I think I carried just a little bit too much speed into the corner. So as a result of that, I ended up losing a position. So I'm back into P4 now. So I need to figure out some sort of way to get back into P3 at this point here. So I try tucking into the slipstream here as we ascend the top of the hill. We get a very beautiful twilight sky here with the moon out, which looks absolutely beautiful during this race here at this time. So descending down the hill here, trying to tuck into the slipstream and trying to get as close as I possibly can. Still not quite enough. Going into the S's, trying to make sure that my line is as clean as possible and not compromise my exit speed, using that curb on the left side to guide me into the start-stop straight here. So I think I might have gotten a little bit of a better exit here as I get some nice acceleration on this driver up through the start-stop straight here, up through the hill, and now I'm right on his back. So I try to look for a move here, not quite close enough to pull it off. So drive a clean line through that bowl here, try to make a move here, but there was no way that was going to get done. So now we're descending down the hill, getting that slipstream, going straight up to 75 kilometers an hour, trying to make a move from the inside. He kind of overcooks the corner and goes out wide, but I also followed him wide out onto the rumble strips. Those rumble strips will slow you down. So we have a bit of a drag race up to the top of the hill. I try to do a cutback, but he manages to drive a very clean line through and retain the position. So now there's not very many opportunities to overtake, so I have to pull something off here. So I go narrow, take the inside, send a move up the inside here, keeping it nice and clean. I get the position into P3 here, rounding these corners nicely, using that curb to guide myself out onto the straight. I look to my left, and now we're alongside, and we have a drag race to the finish. I inch him out just a little bit and manage to get a P3 finish. This was my first podium of the whole season, and it felt so good to finally achieve this goal here. That drag race at the very end was so intense. Like, honestly, for a moment when I was looking over at his car, it was almost like time was moving so slow. But it was a good, hard-fought race for P3. And some good driving from the competition as well. Everything was executed nicely here, and yeah, I'm just really happy to bring home a third place medal and actually be on the podium. So now, my next goal, after finally hitting podium, is that I'm going to try going for a second or even a first place win in one of the next races. It's one of those things where you just gotta, once you achieve your goal, you just gotta try to set your sights, set another goal, set another one that's higher up, and then just try to practice and try to get a better performance for the future ones. So, as we bring these karts back in, I hope you guys enjoyed this race. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know I enjoyed all of these races, all 3 of them, despite the wet weather race on Heat 1. All of these races were a lot of fun, and I'm just glad that I finally managed to pull this off. So thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. So, take care.
Yeah. Good race. Yeah. We've been great.
Second place, Dominic. I'm gonna say it with more Italian flair. Dominic! What are we in today? In our adult category, group number 8, Pierre Paolo.